Welcome to the University of Michigan Dentistry Podcast Series, promoting oral health care worldwide.
Science and technology, fields that are challenging, exciting, and important. Fields that are concerned with every aspect of modern life and the future. Careers in science and technology bring with them pride and a sense of accomplishment. People with disabilities are currently working in almost every field of science and technology, working for large corporations, small companies, for schools and colleges, for private industry and government agencies. Science and technology are growing fields that offer especially good opportunities for people who are handicapped. But many employers have concerns about hiring people with disabilities, concerns that need to be addressed. Mike LEVINE is one such employer. He is the president of a high-tech company that employs scientists and technologists.
The most difficult thing that I have is in the communications area, namely walking down the hall or sitting in a cafeteria lunchroom is where most of the good ideas get expressed. Okay. The other thing is we have some older buildings, and the expenses of renovating the buildings and laboratories for handicapped people is going to be tough. And last but not least, it's a very personal thing for me, and that is in a layoff situation, I really would have a lot of difficulty laying off a handicapped person.
Mike LEVINE has voiced concerns shared by many employers regarding people who are handicapped, concerns about productivity, communication, expenses of work accommodations, health and safety. How can we respond to these concerns? We don't have all the answers. Today we can only begin to explore some of the issues. In the process, we'll meet some scientists and technologists with various disabilities, using their good minds in careers they enjoy. The bottom line for Mr. LEVINE is productivity.
I think I can state what I like in an employee in one sentence, and that's pretty easy, is can get the most work done with the least direction.
He's a very decisive person, and since he is my immediate supervisor, it's very nice to have someone in that position that you can rely on and that you know will make a decision in a crucial moment. Occasionally my toes will get under his wheels, but I look at him in the same way that I look at any other people that I work with.
Jeff Peters is a systems engineer for electronic data systems. He is also in charge of a team of systems engineers as project leader. At EDS, Jeff's chief client is General Motors. He helps GM with the computer systems that run the GM plants, systems that keep track of the workers' stations, the parts they need, the robots that build some of the car's components, where each car is on the assembly line, and the testing of the final product.
What I am involved with is making the people that are out there on the assembly line or in the offices, or in the sales offices or wherever, do their job more efficiently, help them to be more productive and more efficient. Everybody who calls when they call a hotline are a #1 priority, or else they wouldn't be calling the hotline. And so you have to shuffle through that and try to make sure that the most responsible decision gets made as to what gets solved first. I make mistakes, but it's important to take those risks too. In fact, I probably wouldn't be in the position I'm in now if I didn't make any mistakes, because that would have meant that I hadn't taken enough risks to be able to do a good job.
What we were looking for when we hired Jeff Peters was someone specifically to deal with end-user computing in the microcomputer area. I personally look for, in a general nature, someone who is, of course, very bright, very aggressive, ambitious, almost driven. Jeff has shown to be not only all of that. I would say that the fact that he is now sitting in for me as manager of the Microcomputer Center while I'm on a special assignment shows that he has worked out just tremendously well.
Communication is one of the biggest concerns of potential employers. Will I be able to understand him? Will she be able to participate in a group discussion? Will we be able to complete our work in a timely fashion?
I always communicate to my students in the beginning of the year that I am deaf and that I cannot hear. And I lay certain ground rules. I tell them that they are not to speak when I'm speaking, that they ought to raise their hands, so that we understand each other from the very beginning. So the kids work with me, and it's part of my philosophy that I will not allow them to make me handicapped. They know that I'm disabled, and if they put me into, or I am put into a situation where I become handicapped, I'm not at all happy with that. I clearly accept the fact that I'm disabled. I refuse to accept the idea that I'm handicapped, because I can't make myself handicapped.
Jeff Hemmelstein teaches biology and environmental science at Columbia High School in Maplewood, New Jersey. He wears a hearing aid and reads lips in order to help him hear. The students signal him when the phone rings or an announcement comes over the loudspeaker. Teaching science in high school is Jeff's life work.
After teaching almost 20 years, I can still excite a class, that I myself get excited. I'm constantly reading, constantly thinking of new material to use. And I feel fortunate that I still have that ability to look for new things, that I do find teaching exciting. And the thing that I like the most is that several of my students are now biology teachers. Several of my students are now doctors. One of those kids who now teaches in this school uses the techniques that I use.
He does everything totally by sight, and it's just phenomenal, the eyes on him. And it really, we were walking one time through the woods, and he said, wait a minute, stay here. And he ran off in the woods 10 or 15 feet, and he came back with a garter snake with a half-eaten frog in its mouth. I thought that was the neatest thing in the world. And through that, looking and watching and having him, you know, just follow what he does, I became a better biologist. I see things more.
I think you can measure success as a teacher at many levels. Certainly, Jeff's students do well. They pass the course, they learn environmental science, they learn biology. And I think that is a measure of his success. I think that real success goes beyond that. I think that many of his students come to appreciate him as a teacher, appreciate the subject that they're learning, seek his advice and counsel both in areas that relate to environmental science and in areas that may relate to various issues that they're dealing with as maturing adolescents. I think success as a teacher also has to do with the commitment that you bring to a classroom or to a program and how kids react to that commitment.
It was really frustrating because they would take one look at me and think, she can't do anything. They didn't even give me a chance to prove anything. It just took a look.
It took Martha Burks 15 years after high school to convince her counselors to support her efforts to go to college, get a degree, and get a job. Martha Burks is now a computer programmer for the University of Cincinnati Computing Center. In the space of 2 years, Martha has received 2 promotions. Martha's supervisor, Rudy Kammerer, manager of the Computing Center, describes Martha's work, some of his initial reactions when she was hired, and communicating with her on the job.
She submitted a resume and she was interviewed along with several other individuals and was then selected as the person. She came with a very good background. I think we were kind of anxious. It was a new experience. You know, in fact, I did talk to each of the individuals on our team to, you know, indicate that it might be, you know, a little bit different, a little harder to talk and communicate initially until you get used to the way she communicates. And I think that fear, you know, was there at the beginning, yes. But I think as we got to know Martha better, you know, we understand now how to work with her. Communication with Martha is no different than with any other individual. I think at times it might be a little harder to understand, and so you have to ask her to repeat, and she's very patient, understands, and will repeat what she says. At first, you're hesitant to ask people to constantly repeat what they're saying, but as time goes on, you feel more comfortable, and it's not a problem at all. The position is such that, you know, it's a matter of working with a computer terminal, and it might take Martha a little longer to enter because it's like a keyboard, like a typewriter, and she has to enter things in, so it takes a little longer, but really there's no adaptations to her equipment. It's basically the programming is a mental process, and mentally she's ahead, probably equal to or better than most of us in the organization.
Makes me feel wonderful. I'm doing something really productive. I'm paying taxes. It makes me feel good. I used to, before I worked, everybody complained about paying taxes. I thought, I wish I could complain about paying taxes. And, it's something that people take for granted. I sure don't take it for granted.
At this time, we would like any passengers who have small children or needing special assistance to go over to doorway B7 for boarding at this time. When we board the rest of the cabin, we'll be boarding in sections for your convenience.
The need for business-related travel can sometimes be perceived as a barrier to hiring a person who has mobility problems. It is sometimes difficult to imagine a person with mobility problems being able to fly at a moment's notice to a hastily called conference halfway across the country. The fact is, with a little extra planning, many scientists who are disabled have no problem traveling.
I was on travel for my department last week, and I visited the Pentagon. I was representing NWC. I had to talk to some sponsors about one of the programs I'm working on.
June Brooks is a physicist who works for the Naval Weapons Center in China Lake, California. Most of her work is top secret, and so she can't tell us about the specifics of her job. A few years ago, June helped evaluate the performance of new jet airplanes and how they deliver weapons. She also worked on the simulation of the flight programs of the A-6 aircraft.
I'm very honored to work for the Naval Weapons Center because it is part of our Department of Defense. It comes in that arena, and I feel a lot of national pride in working here at NWC. I'm the current capabilities analyst for U.S. weapons, and that means that if anyone has a question about the characteristics or capabilities of any missile system or maybe any aircraft, they come and ask me. If I don't know right offhand, I have to find an answer for them.
Health, stamina, and safety are concerns that are often voiced by potential employers. Do handicapped people as a group have more absences and lateness due to health problems than non-handicapped people? Can they pull their own weight? Lorraine Poore does. Her expertise helps other people make decisions that can save lives. Her work is exacting and carries a great deal of responsibility. Lorraine is a medical technologist, and she works for Cigna Health Plan of California.
I think the main excitement in medical technology comes when after you've been doing routine work for a long time, if you suddenly see something interesting that you read about. And that happens when you're working in a big laboratory. All of a sudden you'll say, oh, look at this. I read about this a couple years ago. You know, this is a real rare thing. Or everybody gets out the books and everybody gathers around and looks in the microscope. And also you know that you're helping people. You know, this is sometimes saving their lives.
She's very efficient. She's quite intelligent, of course, but she's efficient. She seems to have a lot of stamina. We have a high-volume laboratory here. She's able to fit right in with the work, and that's something to be said for anyone, because some people are not equipped to handle a heavy workload. You know, they can do a little bit and then rest, but she's able to carry on and finish the task without any problems.
Employers, or professors for that matter, sometimes fear that bringing on a disabled person into the laboratory is going to mean that that person won't perform up to the same standards that anyone else will, or that the person will have an absentee rate that is unacceptable. I'm afraid that the data shows that that is not the case. There have been a number of studies done, and DuPont Company has quite a bit of statistics in this area, which show that disabled employees in research and development capacities, as well as in other capacities, have an equal or better safety record when compared with non-disabled employees doing the same kinds of work. And the same is true with absentee rate. The absentee rate of disabled employees is not any greater than that of able-bodied employees.
Ann Swanson is an associate professor of chemistry at Edgewood College in Wisconsin. Her primary responsibility is teaching. She is involved in biochemical research. She is also chairperson of the Department of Physical Science and coordinator of the Medical Technology program at Edgewood. She recently used her talents as an administrator on a national level.
For the past year in Washington, D.C., I served as a program manager. My title there was Associate Program Director for a granting program at the National Science Foundation. And my responsibility there was in managing the chemistry and biochemistry portion of a grants program, which provided funds in a very competitive program, I might add, for scientific equipment to be used in laboratories at four-year colleges.
Working alongside a handicapped coworker is a new experience for some people, and new experiences can sometimes cause anxiety at first. Acceptance of handicapped people as coworkers and friends may take time, but it does come.
People initially feel some fear about the handicap, but I find that this all breaks down after you get there and people get to know you.
In this laboratory, people accept Lorraine just as she is. They know of her ability. You know, your peers are the first people to know how well you do. They know she's good at her job, and that means a lot to them. They know she can carry her weight. And she's friendly with everyone. She takes part in any social activities that we have, and often is a leader of them. She's just one of the gang.
In the position I am now, I have a chance to meet people from all the other departments on base, and I've worked in some really interesting projects since I've been at the Naval Weapons Center, and I've always enjoyed the people. Many times I socialize with the people after work, with the very same people I work with, and I've worked with some of my best friends.
Beyond forming good relationships with coworkers, disabled people have gained the acceptance of colleagues, other professionals, and the community at large.
I am involved in this private practice. The practice, I'm real excited to say, is doing real well. In fact, the biggest trouble I'm having right now is trying to keep the practice from dominating too much of my time. But it's exciting to know that in spite of my blindness, the community has accepted me, that the physicians in the area are referring patients.
David Hartman, MD, graduated from Temple University Medical School. He is now a general psychiatrist in private practice in Roanoke, Virginia. Dr. Hartman was the first blind person in this country to graduate from medical school.
Probably one of the most interesting parts of my work is seeing hospitalized patients. These would be patients who have possibly had a heart attack or cancer, and they're struggling with the issues around how to accept their medical situations. In some cases, these are patients that have severe chronic pain, and I might be talking to them about how to cope with the discomfort that they're experiencing. What is exciting to me about this type of work is it deals with quality of life. And I think it's very important that medicine focuses on quantity of life, how long we can keep people alive. But I think it's also important that as we struggle to increase man's life expectancy, it's also important that we make that extra life worth living, that we improve that quality of life.
Most accommodations at work are relatively simple and much less expensive than one might imagine. Creativity seems to be the key. Creativity and the fact that each of our scientists is a unique individual with unique needs. Usually the supervisor and the employee will sit down together to decide what is needed. Sometimes a ramp must be built. Sometimes an adaptation and work routine is needed. The federal law says that an employer receiving federal funds must make reasonable accommodation, which does not cause undue hardship to the company. The employee is responsible for such personal aids as wheelchairs, hearing aids, personal care attendants, lift-equipped vans, or adapted automobiles.
In some ways, the adaptations that the company's made has been sort of boring. You know, this building is accessible. They put a mirror in the men's bathroom that was lower, so I could make sure my tie was straight. Probably the niftiest piece of equipment is this little desktop, laptop actually, portable computer that I've got here. It's the first time in my life that I've been able to go into a meeting and take notes. We really do run in a world where business is what makes us go. And the reason I got this is not because it was a right or a privilege. It was because they're making some money off of me. And so it was worth investing it.
The accommodations made for Martha Burks by her employer were modest. She was given a push-button telephone, and her shelves were moved to a more usable level. The most expensive modification was the removal of a wall in the bathroom, which was replaced by a curtain for privacy and ease of use.
I think the first thing I asked for was to lower my shelves on either side of me, because I couldn't reach way up in the shelves. And now therefore I can reach them. They were willing to adapt a bathroom stall for me, which is consistent with picking up a wall and putting in a curtain instead.
Ben Smith has recently finished working on an important project with Martha Burks. He and Martha received a letter of commendation from the Associate Vice President of the university for their work.
I thought it was a critical project, and that management wanted it out quick, and I was thinking that maybe this person couldn't do it quick. But it has turned out, I mean, Martha has risen to the occasion. There's a lot that I'm learning about Martha that I just took for granted. For instance, when we're working, I have a cubicle, and I noticed that every time she'd come down to visit me, she would bump into this one little corner, the stripping, and would get loose and make a real big noise. And finally, I noticed that I had a hinge on my cubicle, and I could just loosen the bottom leg up and push it out. And so we do that now. She comes down the aisleway, I push it out halfway, and she gets in real easy, and we have our meeting.
Martha arranged for her personal needs herself. She hired a personal care attendant, designed the drinking bottle, which she uses at work, and she also had her wheelchair adapted so that it would fit under her desk. Desks or benches in labs often present problems to wheelchair users.
The standard chemistry bench is 36 inches high, which makes it difficult for anyone most people, where they're sitting down, to reach the laboratory space and to be able to work at it. Surprisingly, biology benches are only 30 inches high, and so why biologists are expected to work sitting down and chemists standing up, that's lost in antiquity someplace. I have made certain modifications within this laboratory to make things more accessible. This bench top to my left is got a big knee hole in it, and the materials I work with are then on top of the desk. The bench top is 30 inches high rather than 36 inches high, so that makes it easy for me to work.
Robert Larson was chief of the analytical laboratory and in charge of hiring for the chemical engineering division at Argonne National Laboratory before his retirement a year ago. He is currently back in the laboratory at Argonne as a special term appointee. He and Ann Swanson have some advice to offer prospective employers regarding hiring and firing.
The name of the game was you want competence. And competence to a major degree in this situation. Yeah, you want manipulative ability in many situations, but you want intelligence. And what you're looking for is not a body as much as a mind, because it is the minds that progress in the laboratory. You've got a disabled person that you're going to now consider hiring, and in the back of the minds of that individual, your hiring person who's doing the hiring, is the idea, supposing he doesn't work out. How am I going to bring myself to turn him back into the cruel, cold world that's outside? It's no different. The handicapped individual wants a chance. He wants the chance to show what he can do. He wants basically the right to fail, like everybody else has. And one should not be concerned about the problem. If the person is disabled, gets on into a position that he's incapable of handling, whether it's intellectually or physically, he doesn't want a part of that job any more than you want him to be a part of that job. And therefore, make your decision.
If you are going to hire someone who has a disability, it is important to keep a couple of things in mind. First of all, obviously you want the work done according to the standards that you hold, and so you don't make an exception for anyone. Maybe the work will be done somewhat differently by someone who has a disability. One example that I give is a chemical reaction will give you the same products, whether it's run on a bench that is 5 feet high or a bench that is 3 feet high. So whether you work at a high bench or a low bench, that doesn't matter. You get the same results from your reaction.
Robert Pugh, the Chief Executive Officer of Steelcase Incorporated of Grand Rapids, Michigan, feels that scientists and technologists with disabilities make excellent employees. Employing people with disabilities is part of his management philosophy.
Steelcase has a strong commitment to hiring disabled workers. You know, when you look at it, 1 out of 6 Americans is basically disabled. There's 35 million disabled people in the United States. Of course, 66% of those, 35 million, have hidden disabilities. They may be heart disease, diabetes, things that you don't see. We have designed our buildings, and we have remodeled old buildings to conform with the barrier-free philosophy and regulations that are also evident with the government. And we believe in that. And we have doors that open easily and so forth. But we also, when we have somebody that is handicapped, we'll change workstations or provide workstations that allow them to work with their handicap. Disabled employees are as productive as able-bodied employees. The secret to it is to find the proper job for them. We try to make Steelcase a good place to work, and I think that if we have a lower turnover rate than most companies, it's because we have succeeded in doing that. We've run our factories, many of them with 100% on-time scheduling for year in and year out. And the employees take a lot of pride in that.
Now more than ever before, people with disabilities can be successful in careers in science and technology. We've tried to present some of the issues and make you aware of some of the possibilities. We've introduced our scientist and technologist to Mr. Levine. We've tried to answer some of his concerns. Our question to him was, have we interested you in hiring some scientists and technologists who are disabled in your new high-tech firm?
I don't think that I would have an outreach program to go to somebody's home and convince them to come to work for me. But if they could fight their way through the front door, they'd get more than they'd get an exceptional welcome and a try for a fit.
A try for a fit, that's where it begins. A chance for scientists with disabilities to contribute to society, to prove their worth, and use their talents.
When I was visiting my sisters in Mississippi once, I met someone on the street who said that, gee, we didn't expect you to become a physicist. We didn't even expect you to finish high school. But I said to myself, you had no idea how I felt about me. I'm the beginning of everything that's to happen to me in my life. And it doesn't matter if it seems that all the chips are down. I'm going to strive to overcome whatever obstacle that gets in my way.
You've been listening to a presentation from the University of Michigan School of Dentistry, which is dedicated to supporting open learning and open educational resources. This recording is licensed under the Creative Commons. It may be reused and redistributed for nonprofit use. Please attribute materials to the University of Michigan School of Dentistry and redistribute under this same license. For more information on how this and other University of Michigan School of Dentistry recordings may be used, visit www.dent.umich.edu/license.